Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I was halfway through slicing my turkey when Melanie raised her wine glass and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "To new beginnings. Regional bank manager, as of Monday. Third promotion in 5 years." Everyone clapped. My mom actually teared up. "That's amazing, Mel," cousin Ryan chimed in. "Man, remember when we were kids? You were always so focused." Melanie laughed and tilted her head toward me. Well, someone had to be. I couldn't leave the future of the Cooper family in Darla's hands. I didn't even blink. Just cut another piece of turkey and kept chewing. Ryan smirked. "What is it you do again, Darla?" Something like, "Mall security?" That got a laugh out of everyone, including my dad. "Ryan," Mom said, swatting his arm, but she was grinning too. Dad wiped his mouth with a napkin and leaned back in his chair. No, she's not security. She dropped out of college, remember? Something government-related. Civil service, maybe? Yeah, Melanie said, sipping her wine. I think she works for some federal department, not the IRS. Something similar? She gets health insurance, Mom offered, like that was a win, and federal holidays off. So it's not all bad. That stung more than I thought it would. I sat there chewing slow, staring at my plate while they talked about my life like I wasn't even there. I could have corrected them. Could have told them I've spent the last 17 years deep undercover in financial crimes, breaking up international laundering rings and building felony cases that put entire organizations out of business. But what was the point? Let them believe I was just the dropout sister who never figured things out. The one with the government ID and a vague job description no one could remember. "Here's to Melanie's drive and stability," Dad said, lifting his glass again, "and for showing this family what success looks like." Everyone toasted. Glasses clinked. I took a drink too, staring straight ahead. Quick note, before listening further, share which city or country you're watching from. Melanie leaned over and whispered, "You're not mad, right? We're just messing around. You know we love you." I gave her a tight smile. "No worries. I didn't say a word for the rest of dinner. Didn't defend myself, didn't correct anyone. Didn't explain that I wasn't just playing pretend in some cubicle job. I cleared my plate, helped load the dishwasher, and drove home alone through the icy Ohio backroads. Didn't even take leftovers. Christmas that year, more of the same. I showed up with a bottle of wine and a tray of spinach dip. Melanie showed up late, walked in like she was being filmed, and handed out monogrammed wallets she had made for everyone, with her name stamped on the inside. Dad said, "She really thinks of everything." I nodded, pretending not to hear it. By Easter, she had switched to a new banking division with a bigger territory and started bringing her fiancé, Travis. Tall guy, fake tan, more hair gel than charm. The first time we met, he shook my hand and said, "You must be the older sister." The quiet one, I just smiled. They got married in October the next year. Big, overdone wedding at some country estate in Kentucky. I wasn't a bridesmaid, not even a reader. I got an invitation like everyone else. No handwritten note, no special mention. Just the generic line. Reception to follow in the garden. I wore black. Not on purpose. It was the only dress I had that fit. At the reception, I stood by the shrimp cocktail and listened as one of Melanie's friends leaned toward another guest and said, "What does her sister do again? TSA or something?" Someone else added, "No, I think she works for the DMV. Or like airport security." One of those Melanie walked past just then, champagne in hand, and said over her shoulder, "She's in government work. Security-ish. Honestly, I don't even know the title, and that was that. It didn't matter that I'd spent that spring in Arizona helping bust a crypto laundering ring that was funding arms deals out of South America, or that I'd just wrapped up a sting in New Jersey involving six-figure shell businesses. None of it mattered to them. I was the sister who peaked at 25, got lost somewhere after quitting college, and now had a job so vague it wasn't worth asking about. And the worst part? I let it happen. "Darla's here," my mom would say at birthdays, giving me a quick side hug and turning back to the cake. "She works for the government. Security or something?" Not one person ever asked me to give a toast. Not when Eli turned 16. Not when my cousin Leanne got her master's. Not even when Aunt Carol died and they were scrambling for someone to speak. Melanie did it. Said something generic about family and strength, and moved on. Every holiday was the same. Smiles, side comments, wine, and that look people get when they don't quite know what to say to you so they don't bother. There was this one time, a 4th of July cookout, when Travis cornered me by the grill. He was a few beers in and said, it's pretty cool you do what you do. Like, it's probably not exciting, but you're solid. Like, dependable. Government's never going anywhere, right? I nodded, chewing a mouthful of dry burger, and said nothing. He meant it as a compliment, I think. Thing is, I was proud of my job. I still am. I'd been working with the Treasury's forensic division since I was 26. I could trace shell companies through 6 countries, freeze assets with a phone call, and read financial statements like novels. I'd sat across from cartel accountants, CEOs, and smug bastards who thought they'd buried their tracks deep enough. But none of that mattered when I showed up to these family events. To them, I was Darla, the dropout, the quiet one, the one with the mysterious government job and no wedding ring. And Melanie? She played her part perfectly. Yeah, she's always been more private, she'd say with a smile. But hey, she's got that steady job and no drama. We love her for it. Translation, she's harmless, not important enough to take seriously. For years, I let her write that version of me. Let them all believe it, because it was easier than correcting them, easier than explaining who I really was. Eli's graduation party was held in Melanie's backyard. White tents, catered barbecue, twinkle lights strung along the fence like it was a damn wedding. The whole thing screamed, "Look what I built," which was fitting, because Melanie never missed a chance to show off. I stood near the drink table, sipping watered-down lemonade and trying to stay out of everyone's way. My dress was plain, neutral. I blended in, which I was used to by now. Melanie stepped up to the mic like she was accepting an award. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my brilliant son, Eli," she started. "He's headed to Indiana University this fall to study finance, and I couldn't be prouder." Applause, camera flashes. She basked in it for a second. "He's focused, driven, ambitious," she said, voice all syrup. "The kind of young man who doesn't settle. Who's gonna make real moves in this world? Unlike some people." Laughter trickled through the crowd. A few heads turned toward me. I didn't move. Melanie smiled wider. "I mean, hey, your Aunt Darla's proof that you don't need ambition to find reliable work, right? Government job, steady paycheck, benefits. Safe and simple." More polite chuckles, some uncomfortable. Eli looked straight at me, gave me this tiny, sad smile, the kind you give someone after you've watched them get slapped in public. I smiled back. Barely. I didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't storm out. I just stood there, sipping that watery lemonade like it was nothing. But inside, something cracked. After the cake was cut and the speeches were over, I walked through the house, past the photo collages and memory boards plastered with Eli's achievements, and locked myself in the upstairs bathroom. I stared in the mirror. My face looked tired, not broken, just faded, like I'd spent too many years trying to disappear without realizing I'd actually done it. I pressed my hands on the sink and leaned in. What the hell was I doing? I had taken down international rackets, traced money through 7 layers of fake LLCS, testified in front of grand juries. I had risked my life on more than one occasion. But here, in this family, I was a punchline. I let them think I was nobody. And for what? Peace? Number. It wasn't peace, it was erasure. I looked at myself one more time and said out loud, "Enough. Quick note, before we keep going, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" I walked out of that bathroom with my spine straight. Melanie caught my eye from across the yard. She waved like nothing happened. I waved back, still smiling. She had no idea. Not yet. I helped Mom clean up, packed folding chairs into her SUV, hugged Eli goodbye, and told him to call me if he ever needed anything. He said, "I will." I mean it. And for once, I believed him. But I didn't stay for the wine, didn't linger, didn't wait around for one of them to try and smooth it over with a joke or a pat on the back. I got in my car, pulled out of that driveway, and didn't look back. They had written my story for too long. That night, I pulled out a file I'd been tracking for months, a bank in Colorado showing signs of laundering small business loans through ghost accounts. No one in my family knew what I really did for a living, but they were about to find out. I was sitting at my desk, 2 monitors lit up with spreadsheets and flagged wire transfers, when my phone rang. I almost let it go to voicemail. It was a Tuesday morning, I had back-to-back meetings, and Mom usually only called to remind me someone's birthday was coming up. But something told me to pick up. "Darla," she said, her voice shaking. "It's Melanie." "She's been arrested?" I froze. "What?" She called from jail. Jail, Darla. They said something about bank fraud, about laundering? I don't understand. She's being charged. What's happening? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the top right corner of my monitor. A flagged institution code blinked. Milemark Bank, Denver region. Did you say laundering? I asked, already pulling up the file. Yes. I don't know. They think she did something with business loans. She didn't say it all. I stopped listening. I already knew. Milemark Bank had been on our radar for 6 months. A wave of SBA loan activity, money bouncing between shell companies, getting routed out of the country through fake LLCs. It was a textbook operation, dirty money going clean on paper. I'd been leading the forensic team, DC office, Treasury Department, my case, and Melanie, she worked for the Denver branch. Mom, listen to me, I said, cutting her off. I need you to stay calm. Where is she being held? Some detention center outside Aurora. Her lawyer, public defender, said they'll arraign her in 48 hours. I nodded to no one. My hand was already on the phone. I hit the internal line and buzzed Assistant Director Swain. Swain, he answered. It's Cooper. The Milemark suspect? One of them's my sister. A pause. Do we need to pull you? No, I said flat. I need to be on that flight. I'll handle it. Copy that. Full clearance. I hung up and grabbed my go bag from under the desk. Badge, credentials, laptop. Mom was still on the line. I'm flying out, I told her. Don't say anything to Melanie yet. Not about what I do. Just tell her I'm coming. You're coming to help? I stared at my badge for a second. I'm coming to do my job. Quick note, before we keep going, where are you listening from right now? I got on the next flight to Colorado. No middle seat, no carry-on. Just my ID and a list of questions with Melanie's name at the top. This wasn't a family visit. I wasn't the dropout sister anymore. I was the lead forensic analyst in a federal case that had just gotten personal. And this time, I wasn't walking in through the side door. The detention center was beige, cold, and quiet. The kind of place where hope went to die in a corner chair. I walked in through the main entrance wearing jeans and a plain blazer. No badge on display, not yet. Mom and Dad were already in the lobby, sitting stiff on a bench. Mom's face was red and blotchy. Dad looked like someone had taken a bat to his stomach. The public defender pacing near them looked like he hadn't slept in days. Late 30s, wrinkled suit, a stack of files under one arm, and a half-eaten granola bar in the other. She's scared out of her mind, he said the moment I walked up. They've thrown half the federal code at her. Bank fraud, aiding wire fraud, maybe even RICO if they can prove she knowingly helped structure those accounts. She didn't, Mom jumped in. She wouldn't. He didn't argue, just rubbed his face like he was trying to stay awake. I'm trying to get her out on bail, but the prosecution's coming in heavy. They know this was organized, top to bottom. They're making examples. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Is there anything you can do? I held his gaze. He looked small, smaller than I remembered. I'll make some calls, I said. Mom gripped my arm. You know someone? Yeah, I said. I do. We were led back to a visitation room. Booths lined both sides, separated by scratched glass. Phones bolted to the wall. Plastic chairs, cheap lighting. Melanie walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit that swallowed her. No makeup, hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She sat across from me like a ghost of herself. She picked up the phone. I picked up mine. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her lips trembled. I didn't know, she said finally. I swear to God, Darla. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't blink. She kept going. I thought the clients were just high risk. We were closing deals so fast. I didn't think. Exactly, I cut in. You didn't think. She stared at me. The silence stretched. You gonna help me? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I leaned forward. That depends. Quick check-in. While you're listening, what city or country are you tuning in from? She looked like she wanted to cry. I didn't give her a smile. Didn't soften. Not yet. I can't survive this, she said. You don't understand what it's like in here. You think I've never interviewed someone through bulletproof glass? I said. You think I don't know what this looks like from the inside? Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I told Mom I'd make some calls, I said. But I'm not your fixer, Mel. You're in this because you signed off on transactions that made no sense, let loans pass without verification, and gave access to accounts linked to shell companies with no employees. You didn't ask questions. Now you're here. She went quiet. I leaned back. Can I trust you to tell the truth? I asked. Yes. Can I trust you to give me everything you've got? Yes. I stood. We'll see. I hung up the phone and turned away. Behind me, Melanie pressed her hand to the glass. I didn't stop. Outside, Dad was waiting. What did she say? She's scared. Can you get her out? I looked at him. This man who used to lecture me about wasted potential, who hadn't believed in me since I was 20. She might not be getting out, I said. But if she does, it'll be because she starts telling the truth. Every bit of it he didn't speak, just nodded slowly. Mom sat in the corner, wiping her nose with a tissue. She looked up at me with glassy eyes and whispered, "We don't know what to do, Darla." For once, they meant it. And for the first time in my life, I was the one they needed. The next morning, I walked into the courtroom and took a seat in the back row. No one gave me a second glance, just another quiet face in a sea of cheap ties and gray blazers. My badge stayed clipped inside my jacket. For now. Melanie sat up front, wrists cuffed, ankles chained. Her hair was clean but flat, her face pale. She kept glancing over her shoulder, eyes scanning the benches until she spotted our parents near the front. She didn't see me, not yet. The judge entered and everyone stood. Melanie didn't. The charges were read in a flat, steady voice. Conspiracy to commit bank fraud, aiding and abetting illegal wire transfers, false reporting of SBA loans, and possible RICO enhancements pending grand jury review. Her lawyer, a different one now, court-appointed but sharper than the last, stood and asked for bail. Miss, Cooper has no prior record, no history of flight, and deep family ties to this community. We ask the court to consider supervised release. The prosecutor didn't even stand to respond. He just waved to the stack of evidence on the table beside him. 50 million in questionable transfers, he said. 17 flagged corporations, all tied to the defendant's approval logs. She signed off on over 40 SBA loan packages in a 12-month span, each one routed through accounts that no longer exist. This wasn't negligence. This was structured, calculated facilitation. Melanie stared at the floor, didn't blink. Her fingers dug into the edge of the defense table like she was holding on for balance. Then the back door opened. I didn't need to turn. I knew that step. Deputy Director Monroe walked straight up the center aisle, crisp navy suit, folder under his arm, and asked to approach the bench. The judge gave him a nod. You are? Deputy Director Robert Monroe, Treasury Department. I'd like to introduce one of our lead analysts on this case. She's present in the courtroom now and has a recommendation for pretrial release. The judge raised an eyebrow. Analyst is here. Monroe nodded once. I stood, and the room went dead silent. Quick pause. If you're still with me, drop a comment with where you're listening from today. I walked to the front, slow and steady, unbuttoned my blazer just enough for the courtroom to see my badge and holster. Melanie turned. Her jaw dropped. Mom gasped so loud it echoed. I stopped beside Monroe, pulled out my credentials, and handed them to the bailiff. Darla Cooper, I said, Senior Forensic Analyst, Department of Treasury. I've been leading the investigative task force tied to this case for the last 7 months. Melanie's mouth moved, but no sound came out. I turned to the judge. We've traced a coordinated laundering network through Milemark Bank, specifically the Denver Regional Office. Based on login timestamps, approval sequences, and internal messages, we believe the defendant was not the mastermind, but a consistent enabler. Whether knowingly or negligently is still under review. The judge studied me for a moment. And your recommendation? Conditional release, I said, if she agrees to full cooperation. That includes handing over internal memos, calendar records, client contacts, and access to her work email archive. Monroe stepped forward. We believe her assistance could lead us to the top of the chain. The real architects, Melanie looked like she was about to be sick. The judge nodded once. Miss Cooper, he said, looking straight at Melanie. You're hereby released under supervised custody pending further investigation. Terms to be finalized. You will report to Agent Cooper's division daily. Melanie's lawyer whispered something to her. She barely nodded. The cuffs came off. I turned and walked straight past my parents without a word. Mom was frozen in place. Dad's mouth hung open. Melanie reached for me as I passed. Wait, Darla! I didn't stop. Didn't look back. We'll talk later, I said. and pushed open the courtroom doors. We didn't say a word in the car. I drove. Melanie sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed like she was freezing, even though it was over 70 out. Back at the hotel, I took her to the conference suite I'd reserved under Treasury Authority. Windowless room, neutral carpet, long table, quiet. I set my laptop down and pulled out a stack of disclosure forms. She sat across from me like she was waiting to be sentenced all over again. "This is your new normal," I said. "Every morning, we'll go through anything you remember. Internal contacts, vendor emails, personal calendars, texts, anything related to those accounts or clients. You'll get a burner phone. You'll check in twice a day." Melanie nodded. She looked drained, smaller somehow. "I wasn't paying attention," she said. "I mean, I was, just not to that. I kept getting new clients, referrals from other regions. I thought they were just high value. Fast closers. They were moving money through you," I said. "They used your access, your signature, and your pride." She flinched but didn't argue. "I started getting bonuses I didn't even understand," she said. "VPs were patting me on the back. I thought I was killing it. I never questioned it. Because I wanted the win, I pushed a form toward her. Then you're going to have to own that. Because this isn't about ambition. It's about negligence. And the system doesn't go light on people who keep their heads down and collect checks." She picked up the pen but didn't write. "I'm not like you," she said. "I know," I said. "I do my homework." She didn't smile, just started signing. Slow and steady, page by page. There was no makeup, no perfume, no perfect hair. She looked like a stripped-down version of the woman I'd grown up with. For the first time, I could actually see her. "Do you think I'll go to prison?" she asked. "That depends," I said. "On how useful you are." On how honest. She didn't say anything after that, just kept flipping pages. I watched her sign the last one and slide it back across the table. Her hands trembled. "I had no idea who you really were," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded once. "Now you do." They invited me to dinner 2 nights later. Just me. No Melanie, no Eli, no cousins or noise or distractions. I showed up expecting awkward silence, maybe a half-baked casserole and a few forced compliments. What I got instead was a candlelit table, real plates, Dad in a button-down, and Mom already crying before I even sat down. She pulled me into a hug. Tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered into my hair. "I didn't know." We didn't know. I sat across from them and waited. Let them talk first. Dad cleared his throat, folding his napkin 3 times before he finally spoke. "We thought you were just private, quiet, and maybe, yeah, we judged that too hard." "You didn't judge it," I said. "You dismissed it." He nodded, took the hit. No excuses. Mom passed me a bowl of roast potatoes like it was a peace offering. "I kept asking myself why you never corrected us," she said, voice shaking. "Why you let us keep believing all that stuff." "I had to," I said. "My job depended on it. The less you knew, the safer I was." "The safer you were." Dad looked up. "So everything, the TSA jokes, the dropout stuff, we just sounded like fools, huh?" "Sometimes," I said. "Sometimes it stung. But mostly, I just let it go." Mom wiped her eyes again. "I didn't realize what we were doing to you." "I did," I said. "Every holiday, every birthday, every time I stood in a room full of people who thought I was invisible." She nodded, tears running down her cheeks. I softened just enough to keep going. "I'm not going to tell you everything. Can't. But I can tell you this. I've worked undercover. I've frozen bank accounts in 3 countries. I've helped convict people who wore $10,000 suits and thought they'd never get caught." Their jaws hung open. No interruptions. Just stunned silence. I leaned back in my chair. When Melanie's name showed up in one of our flagged accounts, I had to double-check it 3 times. Thought maybe someone was using her identity. Mom blinked. "But it wasn't." "No," I said. "It wasn't." Quick pause. "While you're listening, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from." Dad finally spoke again, voice low. "You know what's the worst part?" "What?" I asked. He looked me dead in the eye. "We thought we were protecting your secrets. Turns out you were protecting ours. Our ignorance, our assumptions." I didn't say anything, just let that settle. Then he raised his glass. It wasn't a toast, just a quiet gesture. "To our daughter. Not the dropout. Not the disappointment. Just Darla. As she is, I picked up my glass and clinked it against his. For the first time, they saw me. And this time, I didn't feel like disappearing. We met at a quiet coffee shop on Colfax. No crowd, no music, just the clink of ceramic mugs and the low hum of traffic outside. Melanie was already sitting when I got there, sipping chamomile tea like it was all she could stomach. No makeup. Hoodie. Her nails were chipped, which was new. I slid into the seat across from her. She looked up and gave me a small, tired smile. They got him, she said softly. The regional VP. 3 of his top execs, too. I nodded. Your files helped. She stared down at her mug. They said I might get probation, depending on how the rest shakes out. I'll take whatever comes. There was no performance in her voice, just acceptance. I started therapy, she added after a beat. Court mandated, but I'm going back on my own. I need to figure out why I let so much slide, why I didn't ask more questions. Because it was working, I said. Because they kept patting you on the back and writing you bonus checks. She flinched, took it. I was arrogant, she said. You were out there risking your life, and I was making fun of you. I held her stare. You didn't want to know the truth. That's what hurt. She swallowed hard and nodded. You're right. We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us staring out the window like we needed a break from the weight in the air. I used to think I had it all figured out, she said finally. Perfect house, perfect kid, perfect job. Now what? I asked. She let out a short, dry laugh. Now I'm renting a 1-bedroom near the light rail, working part-time compliance for a nonprofit. No bonuses, just honest hours. I nodded again. Not the worst place to start. Quick break. While you're listening, tell us what country or city you're watching from. Melanie looked up. Why didn't you let me sit in there longer? Because revenge isn't justice, I said, and I don't need to see you punished to sleep at night. I need to see you change. She blinked fast, nodded again. I'm trying. I know, I said. I can see that. Something passed between us then. Something solid. No more condescension. No more pretending. Just 2 sisters, sitting across from each other, finally telling the truth. 3 months later, I was back in D.C., sitting on my balcony with a glass of water and a case file I didn't need to read anymore. The mile mark investigation was officially closed. 11 people charged, 90 million in assets frozen. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady. Melanie texted sometimes, updates about work, questions about rebuilding credit. She landed a job at a community lender in Aurora. No commission structure, no bonuses. But it was clean. A white envelope showed up in my mailbox one Friday, my dad's handwriting across the front. Inside was a short letter, written in blue ink, no greeting, no signature. Just, I used to think you were hard to read. Turns out I just never looked close enough. I get it now. Thank you. That was all. But it hit harder than I expected. My mom called the next day just to talk. No agenda. Just, how are you doing, honey? And, what do you eat for dinner on nights like this? I told her the truth for once. Usually microwave pasta and a granola bar. She laughed and said, I'll send you my meatloaf recipe. It felt easy. Then Eli texted me. First week of college. Eli, can I ask about your job? I think I want to do something like you. I stared at the message for a second, then typed, me. Call me this weekend. Quick break. While you're listening, share where in the world you're watching from. The sun was going down over the river, painting the water orange and gold. I leaned back in my chair, kicked my feet up on the railing, and just breathed. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not from them, not from myself. I was the agent, the daughter, the sister, and for the first time, that was enough.